Hi, how's it going? This is the Chronic Noob. I'm Naomi, your host. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you for coming. How are you doing? I'm doing great. Thanks for asking. I hope you're doing well. I hope you're having a good evening. We're gonna get into it tonight. Laughter is the best medicine, and here to help with your weekly dose of laughter is me. Was that awkward enough for you? Okay, good. Well, I'm so glad you're here tonight, and I hope you will be able to learn something tonight. I've learned some things this week. So here in this week's chapter of the Chronic Noob, we're going to be going over what I learned this week, and the thing is that, well, why I think they are important for other people to learn, um, to help with either your mindset or growing your business or your career or whatever it is. I think that I think that these things are important for different reasons, and I think a lot of them have to do with um, being. Oh, I'll let you decide. I'll let you decide for yourselves. So, without further ado, here's a Chronic Noob, Chapter 5. What I've learned this week is that, did you know? Well, here's my little tidbit that I've learned this week: empathy. Empathy. Mm. We think of empaths as people who hear other people's, who feel other people's emotions, right? They feel other people's emotions a lot. Now this is brightness is weird. That's okay. They hear other people's thoughts. What I learned this week is that I don't cry when I'm sad. I get abrasive. I get kind of like intense and like like I kind of just like get intense and stuff. So something that I've learned is that even I cry when other people are sad, but not when I'm sad. So hold up. I was talking to my sister and she doesn't feel like she can be authentic or share her vulnerable emotions because we weren't honored as children in sharing our vulnerable emotions. We were ignored, we weren't taken seriously, and then when we were like, "Meow," then it was like, "Whoa, you're being intense and contentious." Oh, like it was like this huge deal, and I'm like, wait a minute, wait a minute. I don't cry when I'm sad, but I cry when other people are sad. What does that imply? Oh, as an empath, am I feeling other people's emotions with them, or is piggybacking off of other people's emotions the only way that my body will allow me to get the vulnerable emotions out? It's kind of sad if you think about it. Hmm. So yeah, I just get really intense when I'm sad. I'll be like, and this and this and this and blah, blah, blah. Like I'll just like get really complainy and venty and almost like and well, just intense, intense. This is what happened to me, and well, this is what I got to do now, and this is how I got to handle it, and I don't understand why that could happen. I don't understand why someone could do that. I don't like those kinds of things where it's just like it's intense. It's high energy, intense. Um, but I feel other people's very vulnerable emotions very very deeply, and I take that on and I'll cry. Like if somebody else is going through a hard time, if I'm watching a fucking Disney movie, all right? Like a Disney movie, they start playing a sad music track with something that's even a little bit like sad. Like it doesn't have to be like very sad. I think what was I watching the other day? I think I was watching Planes, Fire and Rescue. I think that was the movie I was watching the other day. And here's what happened is I was watching this movie. What happened? What happened? I don't remember what part it was. Well, this airplane was now a fire airplane, and he was doing this thing, and he was um oh, what's it called? I don't even know. He was doing this risky thing. There were people trapped. Oh, there were 2 RVs that were trapped, right? It was this old couple, and they were trapped, and it was, like, so sad, and it so he heard about them being trapped, right? And it wasn't even that he was going towards getting them, it was that he heard that they were trapped, okay? He heard, and you had seen this couple earlier on in the movie, and they were an old couple celebrating their 130,000th anniversary, something, right? It's always something. So they were celebrating their anniversary, and I was like, just him hearing about this couple being trapped by the fire. First of all, I'm like, idiots! They knew the fire was coming, and I mean, obviously that's the fleeting judgment, right? It's fine, it's fine. But then I get into then it like plays music of like it starts the music, the intense music of like, that's that one couple. And then you start going towards, and then he ends up as he's getting approaching this old couple, right? So just him hearing who it was pinged my emotions, right? So then he starts going towards it. He flies through the fire, the blazes. It's like on the other side of the park where he has to go. And then what ends up happening is he gets to this he gets to where they're at, and lo and behold, this other rescue, I think it was a helicopter, who disapproved of him. Okay, it was like his trainer dude, and he had disapproved of him. He was there too, and they ended up working together, and they saved this couple. And it was just this emotional thing. Oh, but earlier in the movie, there were roads trapped, and these rescue vehicles, the airplanes and the helicopters, they didn't know they didn't know the water had been turned off, right? There's this dude who turned off the water. He'd taken the water, so they couldn't get their fire retardant, right? So they go to fill up because they hear there's a road blockage and it's nighttime and they shouldn't fly at night because that's the quickest way to crash. Like, it's super dangerous. You don't fly low at night, and you need to fly low in order to help with fire rescue and putting out fires. Like, you need to fly low enough to get the retardant on the fire, right? So um they needed to fly low, and they were going to go out anyway, so they go to load up on their retardant, on the fire retardant and the water is gone. They got nothing. They've got some stuff they've loaded up with, but they need to go and figure out how to save these cars that are all stuck on the roads. They need to go figure out how to rescue them. And so they go out there, and as they're going out, they're like, we're going to need to fly over the fire. That's the way to get to it. And just like the emotion, the conviction in their voice when they decide to go, even though it's risky, they decide to go. The conviction in their voice alone, there starts like emotional music. And then as oh damn it, here I go. And then as they're getting close to the people, the cars, they're all vehicles, they're not even people. Ooh, as they're getting close to the vehicles, um, it starts playing really intense music, and they're all working together to get the fire put out, and they did it, and they're moving it, and people are being able to push through. Um, and you see like these people risking these airplanes, they're flying low, and you hear this intense music this whole time, like they're flying really low, it's really dangerous. And then they drop out some little tractor vehicles to move debris out of the way too. But the risks they're taking in doing this, right? They're taking major risks in doing this because they're flying low. And just um them being willing to risk their lives, even though they're fucking planes, okay? They're planes, and it's a cartoon movie. Something about it just the music, okay, here's the thing with Disney. They do really good on the music, okay? They do really good with their music. They do really good with it. And I can't even I don't know, do they have, like, an empath in the writing sessions? Like, That's the emotional stuff, do that. Like, how do they do that? It's some kind of magic. I don't know how. Like, they just do it. So, the music starts playing, and I'm just a mess, and I'm like, "It's the vehicles, they're saving all these cars, and I can't even handle it. Like, they're saving these cars, I can't even handle it, I'm a mess." I'm crying, and I look over at my toddler, and he's just sucking his thumb and just doing his like, he's about to pass out. He's so tired at this point. I'm like, "Oh my gosh." I'm getting emotional over a movie about cars. Well, planes, vehicles, okay? Guess those people must have been really scared being stuck in the fire, and I think the thought of, like, them roasting alive, I think that scared me too. And then, I don't know, just a lot of different things, right? A lot of different things compiled, but damn that Disney is really magic. They know how to use music to just, like, make people cry and feel emotions. Ugh, it's the worst. It's the worst. But I mean, it's cool. It's good that they have that power. It's good that they have that, ability to do that. So, but when I hear about people in an emotional situation, when I see something happening that's even a little bit emotional, I get so vulnerable, like vulnerably overwhelmed with emotion, like in like the crying, heartbroken kind of way. I can't even handle it. I cannot even handle it. But just this notion that are empaths, is it because they feel other people's emotions, or is it because when other people have emotions that are vulnerable, the subconscious psyche of the empath jumps on that opportunity to process the vulnerable emotions that hadn't been honored yet? Because every emotion as it comes to us, that's our spirit's way of connecting with our body, or vice versa. It's how our body and spirit connect. That's just how that is, right? So emotions come in and they tell us something that our spirit needs to know. Emotions are like they connect. This a physical and spiritual connection. And so those vulnerable emotions, any emotion that's not processed properly, is going to fester, and it's going to create damage. It's going to create, a blockage, a backup. It's going to combust. Eventually, it will just and it'll explode. So we have to make sure we're honoring each emotion. But as an empath, um, something that Teal Swan, I don't know if you follow her. She does presentations and things about empathy and women and women's power, and I've loved everything. Like she's big on psychology, right? And I love everything that I've listened to of hers. I've loved it. She's very very. I love her perspective. She's very smart. She's very wise. One of the things that she's touched on before is that empathy. We tune ourselves to the person going through a hard time in the room, and a big part of that, a big reason for that, is generally empaths. We grew up in a non-stable environment where someone who was emotional was unstable. So we had to be in tune. We had to be completely attuned to our surroundings to assess whether or not we were safe, and how we needed to then perceive ourselves to act in a way that kept them from reacting to us in a dangerous way. Does that make sense? So we had to kind of conform to a way that wouldn't trigger them into being damaging to us, whether that was psychological, spiritual, physical, sexual abuse, whatever it was, whatever the damage was, right? So um, as empaths, we when we walk in a room, we're not going to affiliate. Well, we will affiliate. We won't immediately be boing, like whatever that sound effect you want to do is, like choo. We're not going to automatically be drawn to the happy person. That's not the threat. We've been trained to see the threat. So that's where she points out that we've been trained to see the threat because we grew up in an unstable environment. So we are able to immediately, on our radar, there's the person going through the hard time. There's the person who's struggling. There's the person who is a threat. That's where the danger is. That person's unstable. That person's not in a good place. That person is sad, or depressed or anxious, or they're not feeling it. So if somebody is not feeling it, that's why we're attuned, because that's where the danger would be in our non-stable environment growing up. So that's a whole thing in and of itself. So you attune yourself to the danger, you feel out, you immediately latch on or hyper focus or be drawn to the person who is sad or angry or feeling an unstable emotion, feeling an emotion that can wreak havoc if not addressed, or if that person doesn't know how to process it, it can be damaging to other people. So what we've also learned as empaths is how to diffuse. Either we know how to keep the bomb from going off, or we know how to diffuse the bomb. We're experts at it. So um in an angry situation, we tend to stay really, really calm, which also seems narcissistic, which doesn't help with the adding to the gaslighting of, if you're in a narcissistic abusive relationship and you're like, well, what if I'm the narcissist? What if I'm the one who's actually abusive? No, you're too nice. What if I just conned you into thinking that I'm nice and a good person? It could just be like I'm lying. I'm lying to you. I'm not really a good person. What if it's just that? Anyway, don't even get me started. Well, too late. There's my tangent. So back to back to learning how to diffuse. We've learned how to diffuse, but we've also become experts at um, sitting in with people. Like, so we can stay calm in a situation, right? To help diffuse the situation, but we can also cry with people and make people feel supported in ways that we didn't feel supported, in ways that we hadn't felt. We hadn't felt like we got that support and stability and regulation. I think there's just regulation versus dysregulation. I think people don't know how to regulate a lot of the time. So I think that's something that I want to. Um, I think my family is home from picking up my son from school. Um, I I just wanted to hit that today. I wanted to hit emotional regulation, empathy, and what they have in common and the difference there, and um, being able to emotionally regulate. Well, I am so sidetracked. I got distracted by that, by them coming home. I totally got sidetracked. I also have ADHD, so it's kind of a thing that I got going on. But back to empathy and being able to, well, it's a curse. It's a curse, right? It's a curse because you're always hyper aware of the emotions of other people around you. But I mean, it makes up for itself. And I think that that's something beautiful, is that even with growing up in a situation where there's a lot of trauma, a lot of abuse, the lack of emotional regulation, and as children, you need, okay, fundamentally, kids need stability, right? That's not just physical stability, that's not just financial stability, that's also psychological stability. Children are not built with the ability to self-regulate. They have to be taught it by their parents. So if a child grows up in an environment where they are not taught to self-regulate, um, and their parents like don't know how to regulate, then what happens is they become responsible for their parents' regulation. And with that comes the extra need to be aware of their parents' emotions, so that way they can act accordingly in a way that's not going to set off their parents, because their parents tend to react in a way that's damaging. So, as if you've had a damaging childhood and you have empathy that's protected you, and you don't feel like you can process your emotions, your sad, vulnerable emotions, in a way that is healthy, or you don't feel like you've been able to honor it, your psyche makes up for it. Okay, that your subconscious makes up for it. Your empathy makes up for it. And I always thought that I was like, oh, I'm extra attuned to other people's emotions, which, yeah, it makes other people feel seen and supported, the support that you lacked in your childhood. But it also is a way for your body to process those emotions that hadn't been allowed to be processed yet. It's super, super unhealthy for your body not to be able to process emotions. You have to honor the emotion. You have to sit with it. You have to be able to let it ride, let it out, let it go. And you can't do that if you don't honor it. So I think empathy is kind of your body's way of, one, helping you be aware of danger, but two, also I don't know, helping you process emotions that you hadn't been able to process. And once you can process the emotions that you hadn't previously been able to process, how many times can I say the word process, 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 process? If you can find a way to do that, then you can let go of a lot of things. So I guess if this sounds like you, if it sounds like you at all, if it sounds like you're someone who has empathy, where when you're going through something sad, you tend to vent about the situation and not about the emotions. You're less about feeling the emotions and crying it out, and more about like this happened and this happened and this happened and this happened and this happened. Like if you're more about that, but then when other people are going through something sad, or even hear about something, or sad music strikes and you're like a blubbering mess, think about it. Think about if you grew up in a stable environment. Think about if you have an excessive amount of empathy. Think about if you're being able to process and honor your vulnerable emotions. I think, I don't know, being able to look back at that and being able to, I don't know, check in with yourself. Check in with yourself. See if that's something that you do as well. See if that's something that you that you have, that you've struggled with. And I don't necessarily think it's a struggle per se, but your body not being able to process emotions until a certain circumstance arises, that's a problem. You need to be in charge and in control of your body when and how it processes emotions. Otherwise, you're kind of a ticking time bomb, I guess. Um, you need to be in control. You need to figure that out. You need to get control of yourself, your faculties, your emotions, all of it. So maybe even if that's like watching a sad movie, if there's a song that gets you crying every time, I don't know, maybe train your body when you're feeling those sad emotions to feel those emotions and to honor those emotions. Because if you have been raised in an environment where those emotions weren't honored, when they weren't taken seriously, when they weren't supported, then it's going to be easy for you to gaslight yourself and say that you don't deserve that space to honor those emotions. So check in with yourself. Make sure that you know that you deserve that space to honor those emotions. You deserve that. You deserve that freedom. You deserve that warmth. You deserve that safety. Um, an empath has to create safety for themselves. Um, you also need to create vulnerability for yourself, because it's kind of taken away from you. You create safety for yourself and you kind of become shelled. You have like an outer shell, but you feel everyone else's emotions. So need to learn how to be soft again. Otherwise, you come across as very, very jaded and almost pissy a lot of the time. I've been guilty of that. So anyway, I think this also helps in it helps it helps in all walks of life, because we need to be able to process our emotions. We need to be able to regulate when stressful situations happen in the home, at work, as we're building our businesses. It's super, super like crucial that we have control over our own faculties. We have control over our own emotions, um, and we can process things properly. Oh, can you go out, please? Oh, maybe they already did. Anyway, um, you just need that. So if you're an empath and you have developed a harder shell and you don't allow yourself space to feel those vulnerable emotions, you are an expert at creating safety for yourself. So sit in your own safety. Find the people that you can trust and let those emotions out. And you don't even have to be around other people. Do it with yourself. Just sit with yourself and cry for a bit. Just find a way to let those out and honor that without your body having to wait for the special, certain, specific circumstances in order to feel those emotions. Um, Make sure you learn how to self-regulate. It is very impressive to potential employers if they see that you're calm in a crisis. I was watching Grey's Anatomy. I've been kind of binging that lately. There's a lot of good stuff, a lot of like a good life lessons to learn, a lot of fun things to a lot of good life lessons, and a lot of what's it called? Not parables, but like parables. The things that are similes, parables, metaphors. There's a lot of metaphors in there. Um, and something that I really, really liked was It wasn't a metaphor, but, there's a huge crisis going on, and one of the main characters, she's like she was like, "Oh, everything's gonna work out just fine. It's all gonna be okay." And they're like, "What happened to you? Why are you so chill?" And, she's like, "Unstable childhood, remember? Calm in a crisis." And she was just, like, with a chipper smile on her face, and she's always, like, a doom and gloom kinda character. She's a main character, her name's Meredith. If you know Grease, then you know Meredith. You know exactly who I'm talking about, but she was calm in a crisis. So, I'm like, "Oh, that's empaths. That's empaths. They see the danger in like, chaos almost brings calmness because everything is out there. Everything is out there." Oh, it sounds like some fun stuff is going on with homework and stuff. So there's a lot of like, the chaos is out there, and I've kind of explained this to my husband too, is if you're raised in an environment where calm is only there when there's deception about things being calm, if people are only deceptively happy and when there's chaos is the only time you can see things for how they really are, then you're going to not only feel comfortable in chaos, but try to create chaos so you can feel safe. And that's something that like, let that ruminate with you for a second. Did you grow up in a house where you could, like, be yourself and that was okay? Or did you grow up in a house where it was like, "Oh, you just need to be happy. You just need to be happy and pleasant, and we're just gonna be happy and pleasant and love each other." Like, if you grew up in that kind of an environment, then chances are you're gonna be more comfortable with chaos because only when there's chaos is when you can actually bank on people being authentic because they rocked the boat. They spoke their mind. They said their real opinion. They had an actual emotion and they let it show. So you tend to feel calm because you're not having to decipher whether or not someone's being honest with you. You're not having to be like, "Okay, what's just under the surface? What's about to be blown up in my face?" That's another thing that empaths kind of get attuned to is like, "Oh, why is everything so calm here?" And it's almost triggering when things are calm, which is why they kind of create chaos and create drama. They tend to. If you're an empath, sometimes you can, or not necessarily empaths, but people who grew up in an environment where they couldn't feel they couldn't feel like they could be themselves, or they felt like the peace was when there was deception. If they felt like peace only came through deception, then they learned to not trust the peace because um, it wasn't reality. They learned that that wasn't reality, and so when there's chaos, it means that things are out in the open, reality is there, and they can actually see what's real. And there's a lot more trust in the real chaos than there is in the, I guess, quiet, deceptive calmness. So, I don't know, something else to think about. Be careful, be cautious, be aware of your surroundings. If you're creating chaos, then look and see how you grew up. Did you grow up in a calm environment that only exploded when people were authentic? Just look at yourself and see, when do you let your vulnerable emotions out? How do you let out your vulnerable emotions? Do you allow yourself to process those? Being able to self regulate is extremely important. It's extremely impressive to bosses. It's good for yourself too, just for your peace of mind, for mind over matter, for your success, your personal growth, everything. Find a way to self reflect, find a way to look into it and see, are you empathetic? What kind of childhood you had? But there's your weekly dose of Naomi. I hope you learned something here. This has been chapter 5 of the Chronic Noob. Thank you so much for hearing me out, and I hope you have the best week ever. Okay, I love you. Bye.